One of the hidden keys to scaling and growing a business that not a lot of people talk about, well, I won't say nobody talks about it, but it's often lost in the conversation around strategy and tactics, is standards. And the truth is, when I look at my own journey of business growth from really just getting started, not having signed any clients, to six figures, to multiple six figures, behind every shift in revenue has been a rise in standards. And when I work with entrepreneurs on business growth, oftentimes what we're looking at is, what are you tolerating? What level of standard do you consider acceptable? And what's the fear or the block that might be holding you back from really owning and claiming that elevated standard for the next stage of your evolution in entrepreneurship? Great example of this. So I've just been through this hiring process the last 2 months or so for a new assistant. As we've been growing and evolving and expanding in my business, I wanted to bring somebody else on board to help me with a lot of the back-end operations type stuff. And so I posted about it on our socials, and we had a bunch of people reach out. And there was this one woman who reached out, who we opened up a conversation, and she actually is local here in Colorado. So we met up a couple times, and we're actually friends outside of this. But she was, I would say, hesitant. And we met up twice, and we spent probably 3 or 4 hours together. And I was really like bringing her into the vision. I was like, here's what we're creating. Here's the movement. And here's why this is so exciting. And I, like, in retrospect, I felt like I was really like selling her on the vision, or trying to sell her on the vision. And what I experienced was just some hesitation, like a lot of like, I don't know if this is right for me. Like, I've got a lot going on right now. And so I decided to make her an offer. And then I went to this conference, this business conference by a mentor of mine that I've worked with on and off for the past few years. And it was it was actually at Shoshana Raven's Living Brave Live here in Denver. And so I'm at this conference. It's like me and 800 other women and like 5 guys. Those are the places I usually hang out at. And so I'm hanging out there, and she's up on stage, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And she's got this woman up on stage with her right hand, Anna, her basically like her support coach in her programs. And I'm listening to Anna speak, and I'm like, oh my God, like Anna is so bought into this movement that Shoshana is creating. And like, this is someone who's like live or die, ride or die, living brave, which is Shoshana's business. And it really inspired me. And in that moment, I became so aware of the contrast between how Anna was showing up and the experience that I had with this woman that I had made this offer to work for me. And no, like, I'm not like trying to judge or like blame this woman. It was just that I realized in that moment that life was actually calling me to really elevate my own standards. And so in seeing the contrast, what I did in that moment, I was like, okay, this is really uncomfortable, because it's showing me like there's this gap, right? And I was like, okay, I am no longer available for what I thought was who I was going to hire before. And so I went outside, and luckily she had actually sent me a voice message, and she was like, actually, I thought about it, and I don't think it's the right thing for me. And I sent her a message, and we closed things out very gracefully. And in that moment, I said, I am no longer available for anyone who is not bought in to the vision, who is not like ride or die what we're creating, and also is an incredible A player. Like, they're really good at what they do. And I just internally like claimed that standard for myself. Now, a day or two later, I sent out an email about this experience that I had and what it taught me and the lesson that I learned. And I had this guy, his name is Barton. You might be watching this right now because he's helping me with these. And Barton reaches out to me. Now, Barton had actually reached out to me about this role, the assistant role, before, but what's so interesting is like oftentimes like people, opportunities, things are wanting to come to us all the time, but it's like, are we a match for them? Are we available for them? And I realized that like my previous standard was not a match for Barton. So it's like, even though he had reached out several times and been like, hey, I'd love to do this role, I love what you're doing so much, and he was like so bought into what I was creating, I almost like didn't see him. And I didn't see that because I had not calibrated my internal standards to be a match for that, right? But we end up getting on a call because he reaches out to me again. I talked to him for like 30 minutes. I'm like, this guy is awesome. He's like so bought in. I love like the fact that he's so fired up about like what I'm creating. He's also incredible at what he does. Like real total A player. He's like, come to our next call with like all these ideas, and like he's like leading, and I'm like, this is exactly who I need. So I got off the phone and I'm like, you're hired. Now, here's what's fascinating about that. I didn't have to go out there and search for this perfect person. All I had to do was lift and raise my own internal standards, right? And so many times in business, in life, we try to chase on the outside, right? It's like, I feel like I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying to like move things through matter, right? I'm trying to like figure out the strategy and like push out more content. And it's like, okay, like actually, if we look internally, the greatest points of leverage are often our standards, our identity, our energy, our embodiment, and just being able to just look at like, what am I tolerating in my business? What am I tolerating? And what am I no longer available for in this next chapter? Such a powerful question. Like when I look at the things I was doing in my business when I was in the early days of my business, I was like spending all this time like in the DMs, talking to people, like having all these crazy long sales conversations with like multiple follow-ups and like answering all these like messages and like, doing all these things. And it's funny, actually, full transparency, as I'm saying that, I'm like, ooh, I can see an opportunity there, even in this moment where I'm like, I just had a sales conversation with someone. I did a follow-up with them and they probably should not have been on that call with me. And so this is a constant opportunity of like continuing to come back and refine these things, right? It's not like you arrive at some magical set of standards. It's like you're coming back and you're refining and you're raising the bar again and again and again. And so, there's so many ways this might look, right? Sometimes it's just as simple as saying like, I'm no longer available to coach people for free in the DMs, or I'm no longer available to follow up with someone, multiple times. If they're a yes, they're a yes, and great. I'd love to have them on board. And if not, I'm not going to chase them, right? In the collective, a couple of weeks ago, we did a whole training and transmission call where I walked everyone through this exercise where we actually explored their standards, and they actually went through this whole guided exercise where we helped them connect to that higher vision for what's possible for them. And then from there, they raised their standards and they came up with new standards. And it was so cool getting to hear everybody's new standards for what they were holding in their life, right? What they're no longer available for. When you have the courage to raise the bar and to let go of all of these ways in which you are, I will say, like compromising your standards, or just like lowering yourself and all this like kind of subconscious energy. And oftentimes if we look at what's underneath that, it's a lot of fear. It's like, oh, I'm afraid if I don't take this call with this person, then I'm not going to get my needs met. Or if I don't like overgive, or if I'm not available to answer like every question they have, then they're not going to want to work with me, or I'm not going to get my needs met. And so underneath the resistance around raising standards is always fear, right? So the energetic shift is like stepping into faith again and again and again. It's trust in the abundance of the universe and the fact that like all of our needs are met, and we're constantly expanding into this reality where we come into more and more awareness of our inherent abundance and wholeness, and the fact that like life is constantly trying to give us more, and the only thing that's blocking that flow is our own belief in scarcity and lack. And so it's letting go of those stories, which is actually like underneath the resistance confidence around raising standards, and then being able to have the courage to actually claim that elevated standard and those new sets of standards and then hold to them, which is sometimes the challenging thing because it's like, okay, I have a new set of standards. And then what happens when somebody reaches out to me that I know I shouldn't get on a sales call with, but I'm a little wobbly and I'm a little in fear? Am I going to fall to the standards of my previous identity? Or am I going to choose to hold the reality of my new expanded identity and the standards that are associated with them? This is a practice. This is a practice. 18 months ago, when I let go of our previous incarnation of our business, the thing that I thought I was pivoting into at the time, this has since evolved for me, and I realized it's actually quite different than this. But at that time, I was like, I thought that the answer for me in terms of alignment in my new chapter of my business was I only want to work with more established entrepreneurs. And for the first 3 months of that journey, I was so afraid to really claim that fully. And so I kind of was trying to speak to both newer entrepreneurs and more established entrepreneurs at the same time. And it was fear, right? It was like, I'm afraid if I let go completely of the old thing that I was doing, which at that time was mostly working with new entrepreneurs, then I won't be supported, that there won't be enough people out there who want to hire me at this higher level. And I was sending this mixed signal out into the universe, right? Because I was like, one foot in the old camp, one foot in the new. I call it energetic straddling. It's like when you've got one foot in one thing and one foot in another thing, because you're afraid of really making a firm decision and claiming something. The universe doesn't know how to support you, right? Because it's magic happens when you fully claim something, when you're like, I am no longer available for this and I am only available for this. And so after a few months of that, I finally gathered up the courage to rip off the Band-Aid. I was like, I am no longer working with new coaches. And we found a referral partner to send, and refer people out to. Now that has since changed. I've realized after a year of doing that actually the real thing I'm doing here is actually just working with people at a particular level of energy and consciousness. And so I now work with folks at all different levels of business. But at that time, it took me really claiming that new standard and holding in that standard and walking in that standard, which is what the hard thing was, because for months and months and months, when I let go of the old model of our business, our revenue dropped considerably. And yet I was having all of these new entrepreneurs who were still reaching out to me saying, hey, I want help. And every single time someone would reach out, it was I'd have these two parts of me. One part of me would be I am afraid if I don't take this client, then I won't be supported, then I won't be provided for. And so I was, I noticed this part of me that would really want to sign a client, even though I knew I really wanted to hold the standard, right? There was this fear. And then there was this other part of me that was grounded in faith and trust and this higher self and this new identity that said, no, you created a standard, right? And being able to walk in that standard and hold that standard and to move through the fear and to choose again and again and again and again what that future identity is, that reality that you're stepping into and the standards that are associated with them, even before the external mirrors that, even when you've got, a reality, quote unquote, around you that's this doesn't make sense, right? Why would I do this? On paper, it's I'm cutting off revenue or I'm taking a loss or these are the things that we're up against as entrepreneurs. This is what makes this hard. And so it's nice to talk about these things, but in practice, this is where the rubber meets the road and it becomes are you willing? Do you have the courage to choose faith over fear, to rise, to expand, to choose the standards that are associated with your new identity instead of falling to the fear and the safety of what brought you to where you are today?